Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I'm excited to have Lisa here with us today. She's going to be sharing her story and some gems with us today. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me on the program, Shauna.
I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy to share your story. So tell us your story and what brought you, where you are today, something that you've worked through to come out on the other side that makes you
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, first of all, welcome. Hello, all the listeners out there, wherever you might be in your day, folding laundry, doing, errands, driving somewhere, going somewhere. Lots of things going on with life. So my story, well, like most of us, Shauna, my story is still unfolding. I'm not actually sure where it's going to go when we're all done, but but thank goodness it's not done yet. I guess that's the good news. I have been, I was born in the cities, raised in the wilderness, so to speak. My parents divorced when I was young. I did a lot of stuff on my own, and I was haunted with aloneness for a long time in my life. But it kind of we have a lot of entrepreneurship in our family. And so I kind of got this bug to just take whatever I could and make life happen. And I figured out a way to get to college. And we grew up really, really, really poor. So I figured out a way to get to college and I got my degree. And I figured out a way to get a job. And I did that. And I did sales and I did it really the best I possibly could. And it burned me out like it does a lot of salespeople. I just got tired of all the quotas and the traveling and everything else. And when I finally, at 37 years old, met the love of my life, I decided I don't want to be working on someone else's dream and have pay somebody to take care of my child when I mean, I want to be the person who knows what his favorite treats are and what his favorite thing is for lunch. And I don't want to get the phone call that tells me, oh, hey, your son took his first step today. No, I want to witness that. So I gave up that career and decided to be a stay-at-home mom and be the best mom and the best wife I could be. And I loved it. Loved it. It was the most beautiful 8 years, to just be able to pour into my kid. And now that he's 14, almost 15, I'm so grateful I had the time with him while he was little because those years go so quickly. So that was kind of then I went back into work and kind of went into an executive coaching role. And right about that time, I got a really unexpected change in my path because I woke up one morning and I couldn't move. It was really that sudden. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, because certainly my health had been catching up with me. It wasn't something that literally happened overnight, but the symptoms showed up overnight. And that started a long journey of healing. And that's kind of led me to where I am now. So I can dive into that if you want me to, but I want to take a
Sure.
breath and let you interject.
Yeah, sure. I would love to hear about that story.
All right. So yeah, I woke up and I just had a really hard time moving. It was really in my neck. And it was one of those kind of things, Shauna, where I just thought, gosh, I must have slept poorly. Not a good night's rest. But that ended up just progressing and the symptoms progressed more and more and more so to the point where I wasn't able to walk over the next, few months. And so my journey began to kind of find doctor after doctor after doctor to figure out if I could figure out what the source of this thing was. Um, Fast forward through a ton of frustration. 33 doctors, I think, is where I stopped counting, including time at the Mayo Clinic in southern Minnesota, and nobody really understood what was happening. So I took matters into my own hands. I really started researching it myself, and I found some really exciting modalities online that were nutritional based and natural based. So while the doctors kept trying to throw drugs at me, and then I'd have symptoms that were from the drugs, and I couldn't figure out which symptoms related to my illness and the source of the illness and which symptoms were related to the drugs. I got off of all the drugs and just started to peel back the layers of the onion to get back to what was causing the issue. And I did find some of the causes, and I was able to really ignite a path for nutrition and healing. And it's completely changed my life. So while my career was all about sales and executive coaching, and my heart in my family was all about my son and my husband. Now my path is to help people realize that there's other modalities for healing and to open their eyes to the kinds of things that are happening around us in our environments that we are not always aware of. Because, the slice of bread you had today is not the same slice of bread we had 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's completely different, concoction. So just helping open people's eyes to be aware of that and to share encouraging stories with people to help them get through tough stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so awesome and amazing that it's and interesting too, like the things that we go through and how it forms like what we're doing now and how
Yeah.
we can share it because of how amazing it makes you feel, how amazing it has changed you. And it's like, I have to share this with other
Yeah.
people because they have to have it too. It's like it's not great in like you said, frustration, doctors, like all the things. It was literally trudging through the mud.
Yeah.
When you came out on the other side, now you have all of this goodness that has helped you, as well as being able to share it with other people and helping other people, which I just love that. I love that. That's like the ripple effect, right? Like it's how it gets started. And I
Yeah.
love that when you help somebody else that then can help somebody else and it just keeps going. And that's what I truly think that we're all here for, is to support and cause that ripple effect to help everybody around us.
Exactly. In those those tough times, those problems, that kind of surface. I think the fallacy is to think that we're not supposed to have problems. Someone asks you how you're doing, and you're kind of like, oh, I've got this going and that going, and it's like, yeah, of course you do. Like, we should stop saying, hey, how are you doing? We should say, hey, which problems are you focusing on, right? Are you trying to tackle right now? And those problems are part of life. But there are opportunities to grow and there are opportunities to get stronger. And once you get through them, there are opportunities to help someone else also step out of that hole or whatever cave it is that they've accidentally fallen into. So they can also get stronger. And once you look back around your life, you look back at things that you've gone through and you're like, wow, I made it through that. I'm going to make it through this. It just
Mhm.
is like it's a exponentially energizing kind of a thing where you get stronger and stronger and stronger because you made it through the tough times.
Well, it's validating for yourself, right?
Yeah.
You have the proof, you have the thing that you went through and how you came out the other side and how much different you feel or how much different you are depending on the situation. And you're
Yeah.
so right, like when you ask somebody how you're doing, I think that's an interesting thing that you said too. Like, how are you doing, right? You have on one hand, people will be honest and they'll be like, not great today. And then the person that asks is like, do I ask? I don't know.
Right.
They're like, you're not really sure how to handle that. And then you have the people that'll say, oh, I'm good. But then inside they're like, not really, but I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just this
Exactly.
whole like,
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't ask me. Don't
yeah,
ask me how I
it's
am
like an
today.
interesting concept. So it's almost like instead of asking people, it's almost like, have a good day, or, have
Yeah.
a good afternoon, or like giving them a piece of sunshine, instead
Right.
of like, how are you
Yeah.
doing? And then now all of a sudden you're in this deep conversation. You're like, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
interesting, the whole interaction.
It
But
is.
I love that you said that, helping helping other people to realize that, like, and about nutrition, like the same slice of bread today is not from 30 years ago. And I think that is a huge thing because I'm sure people have heard, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I used to drink out of the hose when I was a kid and I was fine. Or I used to, I ate this and this and this and I'm fine. And you're like, yeah, because it was different then. It
Yeah,
was different
exactly.
then. It's constantly changing. And I think the more the world, by and large, is busy, busy, busy doing all of the things. We just go
Yeah,
to the next thing, and we don't like slow down and try to figure
exactly.
out what's going on because eventually something is going to come up. Something is
Yep.
going to come up, like you said. We all have stuff that happens. And
Yeah.
and when I say we all have stuff, by no means am I minimizing any of it because I think it's all very real and it's all very feely and we have a bunch of emotions and either reactions or situations around that, but we all have different things that we need to work through and go through. And it's like give yourself grace to work through it, right? Like give yourself
Yeah.
grace to work through it, but look at it from a different perspective. Like, how can I work through this instead of like, oh, this is happening to me.
Yeah. 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 I had the privilege of attending one of Tony Robbins's events.
Mhm.
I've heard of him, and he talks about this being Earth School. Like this
Yeah.
is just Earth School. And we just, we're here to learn, and we have to give ourselves permission to make mistakes, because that's how you get wise. That's how you learn. Um, so what? You made some bad choices. That's great. Good for you. You recognize that they weren't great choices. Move on and make better choices. And yes, to your point, I don't want to minimize either, because some people are really going through some really hard things. But I do want to remind them that no matter how hard it is, your heart's still beating, you're still breathing, you still have opportunities to turn it around. Until you no longer have breath in your lungs, you still have an opportunity to impact your life and the people of the lives around you who love you and care for you, care about you. Even if you don't think it, even if you don't think they do, there are people around you who care about you, and you've got an opportunity to change it. You always do. That's what we do in Earth School. We learn, we make mistakes, we try again.
Yeah, I love that. That is
Yeah.
so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
How,
And
so how did
oh,
you
oh, one more thing about the
keep
bread
yourself
thing.
from go ahead.
Oh, just one more thing about the bread thing. I wanted to say that if you think about in the 50s, 60s, people were making most of their meals. Now you fast forward, you mentioned how busy we are now. Now you think about it, at least a couple meals are out, or at least fast food, or stop and pick up a sandwich or something like that. When you're making your own bread, there are four ingredients. It's flour, water, salt, yeast. Four ingredients. I challenge anybody out there to go find a loaf of bread at your grocery store that has four ingredients. There's there's tons of ingredients, most of which we can't pronounce, and those ingredients are all there to preserve it so it stays on the shelf longer. But those ingredients, while maybe one on their own isn't so bad for you, every single thing you buy that's sitting on the shelf there has those, and the toxic load starts to gather up. And now instead of just one instance of that bad toxin, now you've got a whole bunch of them because you're eating a bunch of things that are boxed. So yeah, you're really right that food is not the same as it used to be.
No, it's not. How did you, I have a couple questions. So how
Yep.
did you keep yourself when you woke up and your symptoms were pretty severe and you were going through this process, and it's like you said, I stopped counting at 33 doctors. How did you keep yourself from getting stuck and in that place of like, why is this happening to me? And it's just and not, like you ended up doing your own research, you ended up trying to find your way, you in multiple ways with doctors and alone. So how did you keep yourself doing that instead of staying stuck and kind of like, just pulling the covers over your head and being like, whatever, I'm over this?
Yeah, yeah, it's a really, really great question. You know what? I'll tell you, it's because I had some really, really hard things when I was little. My parents are divorced when I was 3. I was abused by multiple people. Nobody believed me. I had to get myself out of that situation all by myself. I had, I was beaten in certain situations, physically and mentally, emotionally. There's so many different times in my life where I had to take control. And back to what we were just talking about, those things made me stronger. Those are the tools that I developed. And so if you've never been through anything hard in your life and all of a sudden you've been attacked by something, and that is your opportunity, that is your moment. That is your phoenix moment to rise from the ashes and to prove to yourself that you are capable of getting past this. I had multiple chances to do that in my lifetime already. My mom's disability meant that I became her caregiver like 2+ decades ago. So when she was 50 and I was, half her age, I was taking care of her already. So that was another one of those where I had to learn all the doctor stuff and all the stuff that she was needing help with. And I didn't know how to do any of that. I didn't know she had multiple sclerosis, so I didn't know anything about, myelin and nerve tissues and all this stuff. Holy cats! I could tell you, I could probably fill a podcast just about that right now. But all of those different hardships we go through, whether small, I mean, relatively small, or whether they feel relatively huge, once we get through them, they ignite us with a strength and a confidence and a power that becomes almost like a superpower because, well, I made it through that. I'm going to get through this. So when that hit me, that morning that I woke up, it was actually right about this time 7 years ago, around February 14th. I think it was February 11th. I knew, it was like, okay, there's got to be a reason here. Logically, there's got to be something happening, whether or not I can actually archive, dig enough, excavate enough to find out the reason or not. I didn't know, but I knew that there was a reason my body was doing what it was doing. And I just had to keep searching. And so fortunately, I have an amazing husband and an awesome son. And so they were pouring positive into me on the days that I didn't have any positive left. That was huge. I had some wonderful friends that also were pouring positive into me when I was at my very, very end. But I always had a spirit of, I'm not giving up. I will not give up until I get to the bottom of this. And I think that spirit of resilience, first of all, I think it's inside all of us, but
Mhm.
sometimes we just don't recognize that it's there. We sometimes lose track of where the light switch is for that particular skill. And flipping that resilience switch on is what I think so many of us need to do, and to just have hope, knowing that we're going to get through this. We might not know yet how, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah, like that is so powerful and amazing. It like when you were saying that, I'm like, that's exactly why I named my podcast that. Release
Yes.
your inner power, because it's like you have it in you. It is in there. You have to be willing to let it out. You
Yeah.
have to give yourself permission to like, I'm going to do this. And it doesn't have to be leaps and cartwheels and backflips. It can just be one foot out of the bed right now,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah,
the next one, and then going from there and building off of it. It doesn't have to be big and huge moves. It can be little
exactly.
things that can change it, but it's in there.
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, you're never going to feel like doing it. That's
Right.
the key. Everybody's, oh, I don't feel like doing that today. Well, too bad. Have some self-discipline and do some of it, even if you don't do all of it, because action precedes the feeling. You're not going to ever feel like doing it until after you do it. Consider the workout. Who feels like going and doing a workout? But once you get it done, you feel so good and it feels so rewarding to have had finished that. So, I have the same thing with like my husband and I always joke because we'll get invited to a friend's house or something and we never want to go. The desire is, I don't know, I'd rather just stay at home and just, be cozy and be here in the quiet or whatever. But once we go, we always have a great time. Action precedes the feeling. So we didn't feel excited about going and then go, although that does happen. Sometimes you get tickets to the Super Bowl or something cool like that.
Yeah,
Sure, you're going to be excited. But more often than not, especially when it comes to things that are in our life that are holding us back, you have to take small steps of productivity to feel motivated to take the next step.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like, you got to come you got to come from the feeling that you don't, that you're not really sure. You're going to get a better feeling, but you're not really sure, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like the carrot. Like think
Yeah,
of it as the carrot, like this is going to feel great. I just got to go through this part first and then it's going to be amazing.
exactly. Right, right.
So when you were going through all of this, like how did you be a mom and a wife? Like did you struggle with the feeling because you were not capable of doing the normal things that you'd want to do? So how did you work through that to, I guess, feel like you were being a mom and feel like you were being a wife during that hard time, along with, your resilience of fighting through and finding all of the things? I mean, you did it. And I know, you released your power and you did it, but how did you kind of like fight the inner, like, the inner thoughts, the inner critic that
Yeah.
came from that?
That's a great question. And it's very real, because we are always our worst critic, our own worst critic. But there's two things about this. First of all, my mom, again, she was disabled when I was very young. Her MS ticked up into a point where she really needed help when I was really young. So while I could have been angry with her, and, there's still that tiny little part of me that's angry that she was never the mom I wanted her to be, I knew that she was the very best mom she could be. So that's the part one for anybody out there who's angry about anybody in their family. I want you guys to remember all of us are doing the very best we can and making the very best choices with what we know and who we are in the moment. Yeah, it's not to say that the choices are correct or the greatest choices, but in that moment, for whatever reason, the person thought that that was the right choice to make, or, they were forced to make, however it might be. So that was the first part of it, is I knew that all I could do was be the best mom I could be in that moment. And actually the blessing in it all was that my son was already 9. So 8 or 9, right around there. So he wasn't an infant that, where I really was struggling with just taking care of his general needs. He was capable to walk around and help. And I think him seeing me struggle through that, but not give up, and to be positive and to keep that resilience going and trying to find a way to get through it. He saw me using a walker around our house because thank goodness I had an extra walker that my mom had that she had left at my place, or that I had taken from her place. And I was like, thank goodness I had that. But he saw me walk around with a walker. He saw me with all that. And he's still seeing me make choices for my diet, make choices for movement. And he may not realize it yet, but someday when he's an older adult, he will realize, wow, my mom fought through a bunch of stuff. And I'm hoping that him seeing me fight through that will give him resilience when he needs to fight through something. So yeah, I wasn't really able to go to the, amusement parks and ride all the rides and do all the things that maybe some moms can do, but I was doing, and my son knows, I was doing the very best I could with what I had.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you said, you know, like me working through this and him seeing that, you knew you're not only is he seeing you work through it, but you're also teaching him by
Mhm.
doing it,
Mm.
like you are leading by example, like when hard things happen, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And like, just by living it and what he sees. And that's so powerful because they're going to see
Mhm.
you before they hear you.
Yes. And you know what? I feel so passionate about the fact that absolutely everything in this life is learned.
Mhm.
Back to the earth school thing. Everything is learned. We have to learn how to sit still. We have to learn how to sit quietly. We have to learn how to move quickly. We have to learn. Everything is learned. And so I had the great gift, if I can look at it that way, that my mom was disabled when I was young. And I got to watch how quickly faculties that I otherwise would have taken for granted can be stripped away from us, because she literally lost her ability to walk and use her entire left side in one day. So
Oh.
every time I had a chance when I was traveling in high school, or sorry, in college and whatnot, if there was a bell tower in the city I was in, I climbed every single stair because you never know when you're going to lose your legs, or when you're going to lose your, whichever senses it is that you might be used to using. So that was a really big lesson to me. And the way that she expressed contentment through every single stage of her illness, every stage of it, she expressed contentment. She wasn't happy about it, but she was content in the moment with what she had. And so, back to the thing that everything is learned, if I can learn from someone else's experiences and not have to personally experience it to gain that lesson, that's a win. That's a really, really big win. And I pray all the time that the Lord will break my son gently and that he will learn lessons without after having to personally experience them. Like, I hope he will learn from seeing other people's stories that drugs are bad, and he'll see those stories and he'll know that I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
If he can learn from me with my resilience and how I, uh, you know, uh, address the world with contentment, even in the midst of pain and issues, that's great. Then that's one more lesson he doesn't have to experience on his own.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's just thinking about it. I mean, we could keep going deeper and deeper and deeper with it. It's so
Yeah.
crazy how
Yeah.
like action, like you said, it starts with action, right? It starts with action,
Yeah.
whether it's a lesson or some lesson learned or guidance, or, your actions are causing that ripple effect. So it's like, what action do you want to take, right?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
action do you want to take? Well, when you when you did a bunch of research and you found out about food, and you're like, well, I got to try this because I got to try something, right? So what, like, how fast did you change things? Like how, like, give me a little, like give me a little story about how you changed things and how you noticed and then realized like this is what I have to change and this is what has to happen in order for me to feel better.
Yeah, well, I was looking for that when I was on my journey. It's like, just tell me, how long do I have to do this? And, when is it going to start fixing things? And when am I going to start feeling better? I never got that. just so you know. I still have never gotten that. And I think part of the reason I never got that, part of the reason why there's so much confusion around all these different diets that are out there right now is because people are so different. So
Mhm.
what one body responds to, the next person may not. What affects one person? Some people are really affected with, just think about allergies as an example. I mean, I could have tree nuts all day long. I have a friend of mine, she has one, she'll blow up like a big balloon. So that's a very obvious example about how not all bodies respond the same to the things that we ingest. So when I was looking online, I knew that I didn't have MS because I knew enough about MS to know that that wasn't what I had. But I also knew that MS, which is what my mom had a genetic tendency. So my chances of getting it were better than maybe yours, but it didn't necessarily mean I would get it. And I knew that MS was grounded in autoimmune compromised state. So I was like, okay, well, where does the immune system start from? Let's start there. If I was completely to like take the whiteboard and erase it and start fresh, what would I have to do to recreate my immune system and help it be stronger? And so I started researching and learning about the gut and learning about the food and the food that we eat and different, how much acid we're putting in our diets and how much glyphosate is in the foods we're eating and all the different things. Now, I don't want your listeners to get overwhelmed because there is a lot to learn out there. But I also want your listeners to get overwhelmed because that's the beginning of learning something new. And if you remember, anytime the first time you learned how to drive or how to ride your bicycle or went to college, the first few days are always overwhelming. Always.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Embrace that because that means you're learning new things. So when you first start diving out there and you're learning about what things are in our foods and what things are healthier to have, the simple answer is cleaner is always better. Less ingredients is always preferred over more ingredients. So if you want to just kind of vet it out to the nutshell, that's the simple place to start from. Simple is better. Make it yourself if you can. Less ingredients is more. Okay, so from there, I found a protocol online that was specifically addressing autoimmune issues. And it was a pretty aggressive healing protocol. And I knew because I wasn't walking, I was ready for a pretty aggressive protocol. And I really wanted to walk again. I was in my 40s. I was like, I don't want to be dealing with this and not be able to walk. I don't want this to progress further and, have my life end way earlier than it should. So what I did, Shauna, is I found some friends, few friends from church and a couple friends that I had just known forever, and I asked them to be kind of on my team. And I started preparing about 3 months before I started this protocol. I started just cleaning up my pantry, getting rid of the things I knew were bad. We all kind of have in us, you sip something, you drink something, you eat something like, oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but oh, well, here we go down the
Yeah.
hatch. So I started listening to myself. I was like, okay, let's just get rid of the things that I know are not good for me. So that was a first step. And as I started moving into this protocol, it was pretty aggressive. I'll just tell you and your listeners, it was 6 months of like 2 pounds of greens a day. So you can picture those really big pre-washed bins that they sell at the grocery store. I was eating 2 of those a day
Mhm.
and mixing them into smoothies, putting as much frozen fruit and berries and whatnot that I could just to make it palatable, and then just sipping my smoothie all day long. And it was a wonderful way to get all that nutrient in my body that my body hadn't had for a long, long time, and to let my body get rid of the things that were compromising my immune system. So I wish I could say that, it was 72 days and I was all better because everybody wants to know how long do I have to do this, myself included. I got to the end of 6 months and I didn't lose a bunch of weight. I'll just tell you, I didn't lose a pound because I was putting so much flaxseed, and flaxseed, which is the omega-3s, balance off the omega-6s, which tend to compromise our immune system. And they're so dense in calories that, I was drinking plenty of calories. But I wanted to lose weight, didn't lose weight. I wanted to walk, that improved. And I also started doing some proteolytic enzymes, which are enzymes to kind of help with the whole gut and the digestion process. And those were the things that really started giving me relief in my knees and my hips and allowed me to walk again. So I knew and it took a good 3 or 4 months So you kind of got to be in it for the long haul. But I'll remind everybody listening, permanent change comes from permanent results, rather come from permanent change. You
Mhm.
can't just say, I'm going to do this for 3 weeks and then go back to my, my cruddy eating again. You really do need to decide what's most important. Is the pizza really that important? Probably not. Are the donuts really that important? Is my Diet Coke that important? No, none of that really is that important. What would you rather have? Would you rather go to the wedding and enjoy all the festivities and not have the alcohol? Or would you rather not go to the wedding and miss it all? I mean, that's the choice that an alcoholic has to make.
Right.
So I'd rather go to the dinner and enjoy the fellowship and the friends and the time with my family and miss the pizza and choose a salad and know that I'm fueling my body for healing than not go at all because, oh, I could sit there and not have pizza. I mean, for a while it was hard for sure, but I got stronger. And every day, every meal that I sat at that they were having food I really, really wanted was, and I didn't have it, was one more muscle building exercise for the next time. I was like, oh, I did that last time. I can do it again. And now I'll tell you, my willpower is super strong. I don't even feel like I'm missing out anymore. But that has been a muscle I have been building over time. And it doesn't come, it takes some time. So you have to have like you said, give yourself some grace and be patient, through the healing process.
Yeah, I think grace and patience is a perfect way to describe it because you're right. When you need to make changes or you want something to be different, which sometimes I think can be overwhelming, right?
Mhm.
People are like, oh man, I got to do that for what? But it's like you said, it's not for 3 weeks and then going back. If you want your results to be different, then it needs to be like a change forever. And it's okay to do this, like, the baby steps. And like you said, flexing that muscle and practicing so you can get to that. You can get to that part to, like you said, now it's like, now it's
Yeah.
fine. Now I'm fine. Well, you got to keep practicing to get there. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a quick fix. It's not a 2 days. It's not a 30 days.
Mm-mm.
I feel like that's more of like the challenge to get through to know and show yourself, look how far I've come. I've done it for 30 days, so I can do it for 30 more is like a proof to yourself versus,
Yeah.
okay, going back to the
Yeah.
thing.
But it is a process. I'm 7 years into this now, and I am only like now starting to be at the point where I'm like, I don't really need the cheese. I don't really need the fill in the blank. And I still have days where I'm really bad, really bad. I know better. It's like, why can't I do what I know I should do? That's a part of our human condition, I think. But so you have to you start stripping out the things you can let go of. If you're a soda drinker, let go of the soda. Just that. If you're coffee drinking 4 or 5 cups a day, pare it back to one for a while. Just see how you do. It's making those small changes, but over time, 7 years later, you're going to look back and you're like, wow, look at all the great changes I've made. I'm feeling so much better. And yeah, I don't have pizza or cheese as often, but you know what? I don't miss it. It's not so bad. But it doesn't happen overnight. And I think in the society that we live in right now, Amazon Prime has ruined all of us. And we want it all yesterday. It's like every once in a while, my husband will order something in the morning and he'll be like, what is it not here yet? I ordered it this morning. Come on. you know,
Yeah, yeah.
so we are so conditioned to want fast answers and quick results. And the reality is, these beautiful vessels that we live in, these bodies, they're resilient. And they can take a lot of pain before they can take a lot of abuse before they start showing symptoms, but you have to have a lot of good things before you start showing healing too. So you can't have it one way without the other.
Right.
If you're going to embrace the resilience your body has to endure 30, 40 years of bad eating and drinking, then you're going to have to give yourself 5, 10 years of eating well to enjoy some health benefits. Now,
Yes.
the fact is, it is healing. You are healing. If you can cut your finger and watch your finger heal, you're still capable of healing. So your healing is happening on the inside, but you may not notice it for years because there's a lot of damage that you have to reverse, and that takes
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's so much good stuff. You have so much good stuff to say. I just love it.
Uh,
Well, it kind of leads me into, so tell me what you are passionate about. And I want to talk about what you're passionate about, and I want to talk about your podcast because I think it's a wonderful thing and I want to share that with everyone.
Oh, there's so many things I'm passionate about. I'm really passionate about my faith. I'm a singer. I'm really passionate about my music. I'm really passionate about helping people turn on that switch for resilience and realize that they're capable of so much more than they thought they could be capable of, just helping people get unstuck. I'm
Mhm.
really, really am passionate about that. And I'm passionate about the diet part of it, the food nutrition side of it, just because it's so hard to find truth and wisdom these days. It's like we're flooded with information and we're starving for wisdom. So we need more and more voices out there that are speaking to the truth of our food system. And it's really, really broken.
Mhm.
It's really broken. And so I love telling people that there are simple ways that you can fix that. And no, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. In fact, people on food stamps can do this, really eat well and eat cleanly. And you can make it part of your family's memories that your family will take with them for years beyond you. You can make the whole cooking process kind of fun and exciting, and it doesn't have to be a labor or something, a burden. It can be much more of a joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So what kind of things now? Oh, wait, let's back up.
Mhm.
Podcast. Tell us about
Podcast.
the podcast.
Well, my podcast is called Sunshine Cafe. It's available on YouTube or any place where you listen to your podcasts. And I started it from a place of wanting to cover stories of people who have been through hard things, really similar to some of the things you're doing, and just showing people that it's possible to get through it. Because when I was at my lowest of low moments, I had a couple just key people who came around me and shared with me stories. One in particular I can remember so clearly. And it was that story that gave me hope, that helped me know that, okay, I can get through this. I will get through this. I won't be scarred forever. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not in a way that I can't move through. And so I was like, okay, I want to provide those kinds of stories for other people. So anybody listening out there who feels like they're close to the kind of stuck that you just can't let go of, or the kind of stuck that makes you want to give up, I want to reach those people and let them know that you can get out of this. There's hope. There's a path out. Let me show you. You're sitting in this dark room right now. Let me show you where to find the light switch and the door to get out. And so I just love highlighting that for people.
I love that. I love that. That's a great space to create for people and to help them. I love that. And I will have all of that information if you guys want to go and listen to her podcast in the show notes so you can find it easy peasy and you can go and have a listen. So tell me about what you do to fill yourself up so you can show up for
Hmm.
all the people, so you can be the best, leader, guide, mom, wife. How do you fill yourself up?
Great question, Shauna. You know what? I'll tell you, there are days where I don't have it. Like as much as I talk about positivity and whatever else, and I'm pretty energetic today. Maybe I got the right balance of coffee. I don't know, caffeine. But there are days when I really do feel just really empty, depleted. And the one thing that I end up going to when I am like in that stuck spot where I can't move is music. It changes my physiology. I
Mm.
put on a couple of my favorite songs that have a really good beat. And no matter how grumpy I am, or how sad or how tired, I get my foot tapping and I'm like, okay, I have an entire playlist in Spotify that are just foot tapping songs. Anytime I pull up a song randomly and it comes out, it's like, oh, I'm tapping my foot. Add that to my tapping the foot list, because those are the songs that I need when I'm really stuck and down and low energy. But I don't have to listen to like maybe more than one or two, and I'm starting to come around again. So, how do I pour into myself? Music is definitely one of them. I love taking a walk outside if it's warm enough. I live in the Midwest, so it's not always warm enough. But when it's warm enough, I love being outdoors in nature. I love my faith is huge to me. And so the power of prayer and just spending time in the word is a huge way to kind of bring my energy level up and help me feel hope again. And looking back on stories, again in the Midwest here, when I imagine the settlers who were settling this land with no running water and no automatic heat, I was like, okay, good gracious, if they can make it, I can get through this. It's not, my situation is relatively not so bad. That gives me
I,
hope.
I love those. I love those. And the music one, I also do that. I have lists on my, I have lists too that
Yeah.
I do that if I'm, in a funk or what have you, and it totally works. If you have the songs that will pull you out of it where you're like, oh, this is a good one, even if you're like grumpy, and you're like,
Yes.
"Nah, I don't really want to do it.
I
That
know.
comes on and you're like, okay, I'll dance a little bit. And then after you actually, like get into the song, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I feel totally different. It's
Yeah.
definitely one that,
Moving your body is so huge. Just,
yeah,
even if you don't, if you sit stuck, you're going to feel stuck. If you
yeah.
move, you can't help but feel unstuck. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing those. So every guest that I have on, I always like to ask them what their superpower is. We're all so unique and we all have our own, lives and
Mhm.
stories and everything. And so our superpowers that we like to share are also very different. So I'm always curious what people are going to say. So what is your superpower?
My superpower. Can I have two?
Yes.
Okay.
I
I will
love that
tell
you have two.
I will share a little secret with you and your listeners. So all of my life growing up, we always have that one thing about ourselves that we don't like. There's like one thing, the color of my hair or the way my eyebrows do whatever, or, whatever it might be. It was always for me, it was always my voice. My voice. I never liked my voice because it was always super soft and nobody could ever hear me. And no matter what room I was in, I would talk and nobody would hear me. And I was just like really always a problem. And I have found in the podcasting world that my voice is a superpower.
Yes.
I've had so many people tell me how enjoyable they find my voice. And I was like, okay, Lord, thank you for showing me the reality that you had this planned out all since the beginning of my time anyway, that this very soft voice could actually be a superpower. So that's one of them.
I totally agree with that because when I first started listening to your podcast, I'm like, oh, she has such a wonderful voice for this. This voice is so great for podcasting.
Oh,
So that's so funny that you said that. I'm one of those people that agree. I agree.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Well, I'll tell you what. So I will challenge anybody in your listening circle there that if there's anything that's in your life that you thought was a downer about you, consider whether or not it might actually be one of your superpowers, because it might actually be one of your superpowers. So, and then my other superpower that I think I really did get from my mom is my absolutely unwavering ability to find something positive in just about anything. I mean, really, really, I really do have that sense of I can just find something good. Even if it's, I mean, I lost my dad 2 years ago, lost my mom last year. I got laid off from my job last year. I mean, all the different things. And in every single one of those, I can find something positive. I had an autoimmune disease of some sort that was completely undiagnosed, that went through 33 doctors, and goodness sakes, who knows how many dollars I spent on that process, but I can find something positive in that. There's just so many things. I had a miscarriage. I can find something positive in that. I was abused. I can find something positive in that. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've turned that one around to be almost at superpower level because I've been able to help other women who have been through those kinds of situations. And I never would have been able to fully empathize and understand where they're coming from if I hadn't lived through that, gone through that, healed through that, and learned how to turn it around to help somebody else. So, superpower number two is finding positivity in everything. Not to say that it's good. I mean, we have all kinds of bad things that happen in the world, and that's not to say that I'm endorsing the action that it actually happened. But okay, it happened. So how can I find positivity out of it?
Mhm.
That's the only way that anything bad that happens in this world makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I just live in it, if I just wallow in the sadness of whatever situation it is, well, that just makes it worse. But
Yes.
if I say, okay, it is what it is, how can I find positive? How can I grow out of that? How can I learn out of that? How can I use that situation to help someone else? Then what was intended for evil ends up being used for good. And that's where you win.
Yeah. Oh, I love that one. I love that one. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
You so much for being on the show and sharing all of this lovely information and all these gems that you had to share. I'm so excited to have the listeners hear all of this. And if this speaks to you or it has touched you in any way, please reach out to either me or Lisa and let us know what you liked about this episode. We would love to hear from you. Is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners before we go?
I will just mention, I'm out on Instagram at Sunshine Cafe. You can find me out there, or Lisa Roers. LisaRoers.com is my website. And I really am happy to hear from you if you want to direct message me. I just don't want anyone out there feeling like you're so stuck that you can't move forward. So if you are one of those in a stuck situation, reach out to Shauna, reach out to me. Just don't sit and wallow. Reach
Yes.
out for help and get moving on the life that God's intended for you to have, because it's waiting for you.
So good. So good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa, for being here and sharing all of your loveliness. And I hope that this touched most of you out there.
Thank you so much, Shauna. Pleasure to be here.